when you standardize and systemize the 80%, you actually have more creativity for the 20% that's custom to the client. And I think that the majority of agencies that kind of get stuck under $1 million is that they're either held back by perfectionism, or they don't really understand systems enough to do it effectively where someone else can do the work without the customer being impacted.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. I know it's been a while since we've released one, but we're really excited for today's guest because he has a ton of experience in our space, in the creative agency space, and I think he's going to bring a lot to our listeners. So we're joined by Jesse Gilmore, who is the CEO and founder of Niche and Control. So I'm really excited for Jesse to join us. And as always, we have Jody Grundon and Jamie Naw here. So say hi to the audience, Jody.
Hello, audience.
Awesome. So, Jesse, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your company so the listeners know who they're listening to?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. So Niche and Control is actually my fourth business. My first three businesses were actually based around my skills. So if I didn't work didn't get done. And those first businesses, I didn't really understand how to create a business that would be able to sustain and grow without me. And I got to a place where I was working 68-hour weeks for years, lost the vision of the companies, and actually dissolved my first companies based around that. It wasn't until I went into corporate America that I learned this thing called systems and process and duplication and all like the fun, geeky operation stuff that I started realizing that in corporate, I was learning and kind of mastering what I was missing in my previous businesses. And so Niche and Control was actually founded to help people that were very similar to the way I was in my first businesses to kind of remove that founder dependence and be able to scale a business. And it wasn't until I started working with agencies and getting really good results with the agencies that I started just narrowing focus on agencies. And since starting Niche and Control in 2019, I've coached over 500 marketing agencies. I wrote a book called The Agency Owner's Guide to Freedom. I have a mastermind. I have a one-on-one coach as well. And there's probably a whole bunch of other things in there, but a lot of lessons along the way.
I got to ask you, 500 agencies?
Yeah.
That is a lot. A lot of agencies. And you obviously didn't do it all by yourself, right?
Correct. Yeah. I hired, so I got to a place in 2022 that I realized that I kind of got capped as a one-on-one coach. And where I was like, I can only serve so many people. And then it was funny. I was making $30,000 a month as a one-on-one coach, which is like way more than you can make in corporate, and my wife comes to me and she's like, why are you so miserable? And I was like, I just literally created another job, but like, it's a glorified job. And I'm like, I got to switch it. So in 2022, I actually hired an operations manager and we started switching from a one-on-one coaching model to more of like a group coaching model. And once that started happening, I started doing free coaching sessions for agencies, and I learned so much just working with larger amounts of clients. But we have a lot of strategic partners, so we're like a very, very lean team, which would make sense because we're kind of systems oriented. But we have tons of different partners and vendors, but our team is only 3 people. So
that's still pretty solid. Three people and doing as well as you're doing. That's great. Hey, what do you see as a big blocker for agencies? They all want to scale, and we've been to we speak at a lot of different conferences all across the United States and some outside of it. And with the smaller agencies under $1 million, it seems like they're there every single year, and they really haven't grown a lot. And they've got these great ideas, but they still are there the next year, and they're still the same size. What do you think is the big blocker for those folks?
I think it actually has more to do with mindset than really anything else. And if I think about my own transformation, going from one-on-one to a group, I had to start thinking about something a lot bigger than myself. And I had to start letting go of perfectionism in order for me to embrace something that kind of lives on beyond me. And so if you think about Robert Kiyosaki has a book called The Cash Flow Quadrants, and it's like this breakdown of understanding the difference between a self-employed person in a business, basically someone who owns a job, and the business owner. And the biggest difference is that the business owner relies upon people and systems to basically run the business, right? And that requires a massive mindset shift from the person who does the work and kind of like a centralized business model to more of a decentralized business model. And when I work, especially with creative agencies, I realize that perfectionism is one of the biggest things, and actually letting go of the reins is a big part of it. when I think about creative agencies and I think about systems, a lot of times people feel as though they can't be creative while having processes there, and that the creativity comes from reinventing the wheel with every client, when in actuality, if you look at the commonality, and granted, if I go down a rabbit hole with this, please let me know. But if you think about the commonality between every client, even if it's a creative agency client where you're doing something a little bit different, if you look at the commonality, there's about 75 to 80% of what you do for every client that is the same. The onboarding is kind of the same. There's a certain process for whatever print collateral, like it becomes very similar. And when you standardize and systemize the 80%, you actually have more creativity for the 20% that's custom to the client. And I think that the majority of agencies that kind of get stuck under $1 million is that they're either held back by perfectionism, or they don't really understand systems enough to do it effectively where someone else can do the work without the customer being impacted. And then there's another component where they feel as though creativity, in order for you to be creative, you have to keep on just reinventing the wheel, which actually just keeps them stuck.
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that, because when you think of CFOs or accountants, a lot of times you don't think of creativity, but that's the same problem we ran into, was that when you're hiring CFOs, that are higher level finance executives, they really wanted that creativity when they were working with us. And anytime we created a structure or a system, they're like, no, that's taking away from my creativity. And it's funny you mentioned the 75%, because when I first moved into the ops role, that's the first thing I said is, let's create an 80-20 rule, right? We're going to put structure behind 80% of what you do, so the other 20% you can be as creative as you want. So each client feels like they're getting a different experience. You're bringing your individuality to the client, because the way Jody talks is way different than the way I talk. And so we want to make sure I'm not trying to be a little Jody, even though I wish I could sometimes, but I'm not trying to be a mini Jody when I'm being a CFO. I'm still allowing me to be myself, but we're also giving you a lot of structure behind what you do. So I think that was, it's very interesting that you mentioned that 75%. Do you want to kind of talk about how do clients, when you're working with them, how do they get that realization of like, oh yeah, I can put some structure behind what we do and still be creative? Like, what are the reactions you get to those conversations?
Yeah. So when I think about the starting point for a lot of awareness, because ultimately, if you're going to build systems in a creative agency and you're going to get the agency owner, but then also the team and kind of one and the same to embrace systems, you're going to have to get a really clear awareness of kind of where you are right now. So one of the first things that we do with every client, whether a creative agency or digital marketing or whatever, is we have them go through a weekly time log. So they get a snapshot of how are you using your time right now, every half an hour for 7 days. It's like pulling teeth, but to get them to actually log it. And it's very similar to looking at like a marketing campaign. When you actually have the raw data in front of you, you can actually start making changes to it, right? And once we understand the use of time, we start to get to a place where we run them through a model where you look at what can you eliminate that you're doing right now that like you just literally could get rid of and there's no value to it. What can you automate that you're currently doing right now that is predictable, consistent and frequent. And then once, if you can't eliminate, automate, can you delegate? Is there other people that can take the work from you and be able to allow you to focus on time blocking? As you're going through that process, there is a natural kind of like unearthing of like where time is being used in the wrong way, where maybe like revision cycles. That's actually something I probably want to dive into with you guys with creative agency, because I remember revision cycles for Susan was like, it was a game changer. So we started capturing her use of time, or client or her team's use of time, and built into the process was this revision cycle with a client, right? And then it was just like nonstop. And I go, how many revision cycles do you typically go through with a client? And she's like, oh, like 9. And I was like, whoa, hold on for 1 second. I was like, 9 revision cycles? And she's like, yeah, I want to make sure it's perfect, right? And I was like, okay, I got to get the whole organization to embrace a 3 or less revisions, right? And if we do that effectively, then you immediately increase your capacity, right? And that took like a cultural mindset shift to embrace that thing. Now, when I talk about like systems, if you think about the easiest way to create systems, if I asked you what are the roles and services that you provide to clients, just list them all out. so that from a macro level, you understand what's going on in the business. And then from each one of those, what are some different processes that allow you to service clients? So for an example, like client onboarding is a process, the setup of a campaign is a process, and so forth. If I can get you to understand from a high level what's happening within the business, and then the components that start developing processes and how you actually deliver work, it makes it a lot easier for you to see the commonality and where there is commonality between clients and not. I could keep on going in that, but does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And so then it sounds like you get different reactions from different people, because sometimes what you talk to them about is you find that trigger of this is the one thing that really is holding you back, and then that is the item that oftentimes they're going to have to go down and change. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So my follow up. Go ahead, Jody. Something you might have.
Yeah, I was just wondering on that. I mean, so getting, having an owner sit down and go through and plot out their 30 days seems pretty tough. I mean, just getting, for us to even get receipts for meals and entertainment and stuff like that they spend seems like that's pulling teeth. How do you get them to do that? And then is that information super accurate when you get it, or do you think they're just kind of filling in the spots to make you happy?
Good question. So first off, luckily it's not 30 days, it's 7. But
okay.
Yeah. I don't know if I've been able to get success with asking for 30 days, but for 7 days, even before they do the weekly time log, I'm talking to them about way like deeper stuff about like mindset of who you are and who you want to become, and who, like, there's a lot more of like the mindset component that actually pulls them through whatever we're trying to do with the use of time. But the accuracy of it, we tell them very, very honestly, like the more honest and more detailed that you are about what's actually in the log, the more benefit you're actually going to get out of our time audit. Because if you just kind of like fudge and you're like client work for 7 hours, like that's not going to do anything, you know what I mean? Exactly. So, and we give them a lot of different examples. I had the example that we even use in the weekly time log was one of our most extreme examples of a real life person that we removed the name from it. And this person was spending like every half an hour, 98 times Twitter came up. Like if you just like the cool thing about putting it into a Google sheet is you can type in whatever their like either addiction or distraction or whatever it is. And then in 1 week we did that. And the second week he was like, oh, I got rid of Twitter. And then I replaced it with gaming. Right. And then there was even more. And then once we got rid of those two things, then all of a sudden he had clarity of, I need to fire this person. I need to hire this thing. Like everything changed. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it's these little tiny things. So the example that's even used in that is like so extreme. They're like, I'm not like that. And then what they do is they then start documenting everything honestly. You know what I mean? Yeah, I tell them like scrolling social media, add it. Binge watching Netflix, add it. Like, random distractions about trying to learn AI when you're not even going to apply the thing, like capture it, whatever it is. Because immediately once we understand that, we can reorganize people's lives. It's crazy because I just want to go on a case study real quick with Mike. He wasn't a creative. Yeah. So he's not a creative agency, but it was like a website design and development agency.
Sure.
And I asked him, and he was like super, super skilled. And granted, all of our clients are like really experts at what they do. They just don't have like the systems and the offer to set up. And I asked him in the way beginning before working together, I was like, it seems like you're working a lot. And he's like, yeah, 12 to 14 hour days, 7 days a week. And I was like, holy crap, dude. And I was like, why did you start the agency in the first place? And he's like, oh, I wanted to be closer to my kids. I almost like started tearing up because I'm like, holy crap, your vision and then where you are is not it. So I was like, this is what we're going to do. Every single week, we're going to do this time log. And I want to take that 80 hours and I want to get it to 40. And then I want to carve out 8 hours for you to work on the business. If I can do that, then it's going to work. And it was literally like pulling teeth the first week. And then all of a sudden it was like week. And we went from 80 to 60 to 40 to 32. And then he started having time with his kids. And then all of a sudden his business quadrupled. It's like, it's crazy how much, if I can free up a founder into where they are in their unique ability and they are positioned correctly, it's like this most beautiful thing that happens with their business where they just start to expand. It's as though the business wants to expand And the whole goal of a founder is to keep on removing the bottlenecks that are actually holding it back from expansion.
I would even take it one step further and say, if you can do that with everybody on the team, it's amazing what will happen to the entire team, because the entire team will develop that same habit where they'll start figuring out, hey, maybe I can delegate this downward to this person so that I can free up more time to do these other things. And oh, by the way, I'm not going to abdicate it. I'm not just going to give it to them and walk away. I'm going to make sure that I put landmines in there so that I can figure it out if they make mistakes, so that they're the quality of the work isn't getting better, or it gets better. And that's all called Parkinson's law. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all.
Yeah.
But what you described is exactly that. And I tell people that all the time, because they're like, what are my boundaries? It's like, well, what do you want your boundaries to be? Because that's what they would. If you're going hours and you say that, hey, I just want to work 35 hours a week, guess what? You'll work 35 hours a week and you'll figure out how to do it. If you say that, hey, I'm going to work with 12 clients and that's all I'm going to work with because that's all I can handle, well, then you're right. Because you'll never figure out ways to work for 15 clients or 20 clients or 25 without killing yourself. Because it's not that when you work more clients, or it doesn't mean you're working more hours. It just means that now you've got to figure out how to delegate and how to work and how to manage those clients in a better or different way. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're teaching these agency owners, and kudos to you on that, because that's really super tough, and it's a tough concept for everybody to really get their head around and grasp until it actually happens. Like the example you gave is a perfect example. You walked in, 3 months before that and say, hey, I'm going to get you down to 35 hours in 2 months. They'd be like, whatever. And I'm sure you probably got that. What do I have to do? Cut half my clients in order to have it happen? And you're like, no, we're going to figure it out. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. And a lot of it actually has to come down to them envisioning a future that's different than where they are right now. And I don't think that anything would even work from a tactics or a strategy perspective without that mindset shift. And the more and more I drill down into it, I think that the mindset shift is the biggest catalyst for pretty much everything. And then when I start to figure out what the root cause of the actual issue is, one of the interesting things that we did recently in the last month or so is we took all 500 recordings. One of the greatest things about AI these days is you can synthesize a lot of information in a very short period of time. And what we found is that the agencies that we had worked with that went through a repackaging of an offer ultimately were the longest lasting successes. So if you think about you talked about the hours component. Now, if an offer is based around an hourly model or a cost plus model, it's going to die. Maybe that's all of a sudden the title of your episode, and it gets a lot of traction. But if you think about it, I'm just going to go on a random rant because this is really important, especially for creative agencies, because the pricing model and how you package an offer makes a big difference on the freedom that you're actually creating within the agency. And so when I think about these two different models, you have an hourly model and a cost plus model, which are most traditional agency models. The hourly model, it's very simple, but it's very similar to a freelancer model, where the longer that I take to do work, the more I get paid to do it. It's a weird thing right now because and with AI you can do 10 hours of work in 30 minutes or whatever, and if you don't switch the pricing model, you'll actually lose money by being more efficient, right? So that's one thing, and I'll talk about the solution to both of these. But then you have the cost plus model, which is just weird. I don't understand it at all because it's actually the cost is based around whatever it costs you and then a profit margin that's added to it. And the only way to actually make more money with that is to either increase your profit margin based around whatever the bundle is or increase the bundle. Now, if you increase the bundle, it actually is not necessarily aligned with the value to the client. It's just whatever you can package in this thing, thinking that value is like a grocery bag, and then the more stuff that you shove into it, the better it is, as opposed to it being a recipe and the ingredients needs to be for the recipe to get the result. So the solution to that is what's called value-based pricing. It actually came from my learning was in a $4 billion global corporation, how the CEOs of companies will do a thing called strategic blueprinting. You don't have to go so far into that, but it's basically where the mission and the values and like the projects, the strategic initiatives are melded together between two massive companies, and then between that, they're able to grow for a lot of time. You want to do the same exact thing and that same kind of idea with value-based pricing, where you look at the value of actually hiring an agency. And I'm going to tell you right now, agencies are not going away with AI. They're just being split. You have the strategy-based agencies that are going up market. I give thumbs up to everybody that's like in that realm where you're an expert, go up market. And then AI and then like low cost agencies are just being with other different currencies. Don't go in the execution route, go on the strategy route. But when you think about the value, you want to look at what is the true value that you bring to a client. Okay. You could look at the return on investment for a creative agency being either time saved, money saved, or money earned. Okay. One of the beautiful things about marketing agencies is that money made is usually the most accurately tracked data point that people can use, but there's also other ROIs in there. And if you use a 5 to 10x return on investment rule, where you take whatever that total ROI is and divide it by 10 and divide it by 5, you now have a pricing band, right? And the key is that you figure out what your core competency is based on the systems and what's most valuable, and then you align towards the value-based pricing. One of the things that we did with a client that went through our Scalable Agency Accelerator, our mastermind clients went through it before we took it to the public. 2 clients on launch week, one closed a $50,000 a month client and one closed a $25,000 a month client. It is crazy. And the clients that got closed are very happy, which is an amazing, awesome thing. So anyway, I went on a rant there, but yeah.
That's great. Yeah, we've been talking value-based pricing for years at the at agency events. I mean, we are big fans of it, and I think Jody definitely changed the way that CPA firms look at it, because CPA firms have traditionally been in that same boat, and Jody made that decision a long time ago. So we've been trying to preach that to agencies for a long time. But I think this is to me probably the biggest benefit of AI is what you just said, those two things. Like, it is forcing agencies to do those two things they should have been doing a long time ago. One, moving to value-based pricing, and 2, focusing on strategy versus the low level transactional work, right? So I think that is definitely, like, to me, there's a lot of benefits that AI is causing directly, but indirectly to me, like the last 3 years, Jody, maybe even longer than that, the amount of conversations at the events we've been at that have shifted to those two topics has been crazy, and it's been awesome to hear. And hey, fine, you guys are catching on, you're listening, and you're having those conversations, and so it's been definitely a good side effect.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. Because when we did it with the accounting industry, we started subscription-based, value-based billing about 25 years ago, and people looked at us like we were idiots. Like, you guys are going to go out of business. This will never work. And their thing was, people will never want to buy that, because they like they like buying hours. If you do it in an hour, they're not going to give you X amount of dollars. They want to see you there doing it. And it's like, I don't think that's true. And when we started it, we created a value-based structure, and then we created a subscription-based billing model, basically taking it and then kind of blowing it up based on revenue size, based on employee headcount, based on scalable things that we could actually fit into and charge somebody that was $1 million in revenue versus a $10 million revenue company, and then spread that over a period of time and make it a weekly. So we zap our clients every single week for that same dollar amount unless scope changes. And it's really changed a lot. And we had, like I said, we had so much pushback. And so then when we started working with agencies, we had the same pushback. It's like, you can do that in the accounting industry, but that will never work in our industry. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're the only ones doing it in the accounting industry. At that time. What are you talking about? And it's like, then you hear all the reasons, the excuses why. And I'm sure you've heard all those reasons many times. And Jamie, you're right. With AI, it's made it so that those reasons are kind of going away, because now they're kind of stuck. Hey, what was taking me 10 hours is now taking me an hour. What do I do? Do I just lose that revenue, or do I cut people? What do I do? And kind of shifting the question back over to you, Jesse, what are you seeing agencies doing?
Yeah, going up market. If you think about the increase of value, so for an example, I had I had an outbound company doing like cold email and stuff like that. And and I was like, you got to figure out a differentiating factor, because there's like a million cold email people that do that. And the more and more we started diving into the differentiation, he's like, we're kind of like more like a CRO, like a fractional CRO kind of like role. And we want to build something that actually the company will actually own at the end. And then we can kind of work with them over it. And what he found is that the clients that he was working with for like a $4,000 a month kind of a retainer just didn't value what he was going after, and he was like, screw it. And so he started going up market, and he sold like a $9,000 a month client, and then right afterwards there's a $12,000 a month client. And he's like, this is actually awesome, because they see the value that we're bringing, and then we're actually more in like a differentiated, highly valuable kind of service that he could literally just sell all day, because he knows how valuable it actually is, and he can lean into the pricing point. So what I'm finding is that when you go the strategy route, there's always going to be a return on investment for companies that hire an agency that are on the strategy, highly valuable, niched type of agency. There is so much value, and they're not going away. It's the up market. You got to keep on going up market, which means you do have to change the offer. You have to change the positioning. You have to change who you're going after. But it's actually all for the good of the people that you're reaching out to, the good for you figuring out your core competence, and maybe not being everything to everyone anymore. If that's somebody that's there and they're being the generalist, you're just going to be seen as a commodity. And because of AI's like content like flood that everybody's going to be able to create content, the things that are going to stand out are the more niched specialist types of things. I solve this certain problem for a very specific group of people, and until you have that messaging, you're just going to be seen as a commodity in the market.
And that was my turn to plug you, because I think that the one thing that I've worked with a lot of clients over the last couple of years on is these are very hard conversations to have internally. You need that outside perspective, because what you think might be what makes you special might not be that thing. And so I do think that bringing in, it doesn't have to be Jesse, although I definitely, after listening to him talk, would recommend him. But like, I think bringing in that third party to really listen to you and listen to you talk about your business and understand what you do and get advice from them is going to be super helpful. And I do think that's from the clients that I've seen be successful. For the ones that I haven't, are the ones that are trying to figure this out on their own. They're like, what we're really good at is this. And they start going down that wrong path, and no one's buying it and no one's selling it, and they're not that passionate about it. So I think bringing in someone like Jesse would be super helpful in this area. So I know that's definitely my plug for you, which I don't do on all podcasts. So that's a compliment.
Yeah, for sure.
So
thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, if you were closer, I'd give you a nice big hug. I was like, yeah, dude, like, I appreciate it. And
we're a couple states away, so for sure. Awesome. So as we're kind of winding down the time here, I wanted to make sure we did have time for our fun question. And so early on, we talked a lot about creativity. So I'm going to go down that path. And I think that I want to make sure, at least I love having some type of creative outlet, something that I do that's outside of like work, or something that I do that I consider a creative hobby. So I'm curious what your guys would consider your creative hobbies that you do to kind of use your creativity to make sure you're not just a boring accountant or business analysis, analyst. So I'll start with you, Jody, because it sounds like you have an answer right away here.
Oh yeah, my wife could probably kill me right now for my creative hobby that I'm putting together. I've got a really cool bar in my living room that has three different shelves on it. One shelf full of really cool tall tequila bottles. The next shelf, high premium tequila, and the top shelf has all the kind of whiskey and bourbon and some rum bottles in there. And I've been pretty fixated on that over the past year. It seems like I get it to where I want it to be, and it's like, oh, I could really add something else to it. And then chat's really blown it for me, because now I'm having chat analyze my whiskey collection.
Oh, no.
Which bottle doesn't belong? What order should they be in? And I'm like, gosh dang, this is super addictive. And so it's like, so it's an addictive hobby that, and the funny part about it is my wife doesn't drink at all. And so, and I don't drink by myself. And so it's like, I got to have guests over if I'm going to tap into this stuff. And so we have a quarterly retreat, and with the leadership retreat, every quarter. And in January, that's when we have it in Fort Lauderdale, and we set it off at my house as the first one. So that's really the only time I get an opportunity to actually drink any of the cool bottles I put up there. And so it's a fun, expensive hobby, and it's just like I said, it's just a lot of fun.
Jody, I am connecting dots right now. So just to give you a little bit of backstory, we, at our last retreat, which was in St. Louis, we started like planning this January retreat, and we started figuring out who we were going to invite. And Jody kept throwing more names in. He's like, oh, we should also invite this person. We should also invite this person. Usually this retreat between 12 to 15 people. This one's going to be like 40. And now I know why. It's like Jody has some alcohol he needs to get rid of. So.
Plus, you want the 360-degree feedback on your whiskey collection, so you're not just talking to AI the answer.
Exactly.
All right, Jesse, what about you? What's your creative outlet?
What's so funny is you asked this question, and I'm immediately like, I was way more, I had way more creativity outlets before having 3 kids and a puppy and a wife. But yep. I think what's interesting, it doesn't seem very creative at the time, but I do martial arts with my son.
Oh,
and one of the in the tournaments, I got first place in creative forms. So I think that creativity has kind of taken a different turn. Before kids and before getting married, I used to travel around internationally and take pictures. My second business was a fine art photography business, and I was so into like the actual art of photography and like and then like the conceptual images and like using imagery as being a way of kind of speaking. And even before that was music and DJing. I had about 28 jobs before.
Oh, wow.
I used to be like a DJ and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say these days it's more in martial arts with my son.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. That's a great journey. I think we could probably spend a 30-minute podcast just talking about all your jobs. And
that sounds like awesome.
Common in the creative agency space. So you probably get along really well with your clients. So,
hey, Jamie, let's hear yours.
Well, Jody, you might know I'm not sure if you've ever sat next to me at a retreat, but I love pencil to paper drawing. Like I love just doodling and drawing and doing a little artwork. I don't like pens. I don't like markers. I don't like color. I just love like drawing with a pencil with different shading. And so like anytime I don't do it as much virtually, but whenever I'm at a retreat, like I just love like when it helps me listen. Like if I'm sitting there listening to a person talking or we're in a conversation, like just doodling helps me concentrate. And so I love to draw. I've always loved to draw. And again, it's very simple with just pencils and paper and just love.
I thought you were taking notes the entire time. No,
dude, you should look at my pages. I like
the notes are visual, right?
Sometimes they're like basketball logos. Sometimes one year I did like all different jack-o'-lanterns. I think I had like 400 jack-o'-lanterns on my pages. And like I just love like drawing. So that's awesome. That's my creative outlet. So
I'm not good at martial arts, although I'd love to be. That's one thing I'd love to do. Drawing, I am horrendous at.
So. Yeah, same. I got like 6 figures and stuff like that.
Cool. Well, I think this was a really fun episode. I know it was fun for me, but I want to make sure we get a chance to wrap up here real quick with everybody kind of giving their final thoughts. And so I'll start with you, Jesse. And when you give your final thoughts, make sure you tell people how to reach out to you, because I think your name is really creative. So when people hear it, they might hear mission control, which isn't exactly what it is. Make sure you give them the spelling there as well. So yeah, sure. Give us a final thought and let everybody know how to reach you. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll take 30 seconds on this. The actual origin of the name, niche in control. So niche in control was actually created by my wife. We were on a drive. My son at the time was about 1, couldn't go to sleep. So we were driving to Dairy Queen, and on the way, we were just spitballing different names back and forth. And she tried to say mission control, but she had a cold and it came out niche in control. And I was like, it's perfect. And she's like, I didn't do that. And I was like, no, you did. So niche in control. So NICHEIN control, CONTROL. You can go to nicheincontrol.com to learn more about what we do. We recently launched the Scalable Agency Accelerator, and part of the reason why I'm so excited about it is I had a vision of impacting 1 million entrepreneurs, and based around our previous models, either as a one-on-one coach or even in the mastermind, we weren't able to hit the impact that we want it to. And so the Scalable Agency Accelerator gives that scalable agency offer from a build to a packaging to a pricing to a launch within 14 days that you can take an offer to the market based around what we've learned from the 500 agencies. So if that resonates with you, you're a creative agency, you're reinventing the wheel all the time, feeling undervalued from the clients, and you just need to go up market, everything that we literally talked about, you can go to go.nichingcontrol.com/accelerator. And I'll give you guys the links to this in the show notes. There's probably other things. Oh, and then I'm really active on LinkedIn. I'm connected with about 16,000 agency owners. You can go to LinkedIn, Jesse P. Gilmore. The P is perfect for SEO because if you type in Jesse Gilmore, it's like Gilmore Girls and Jesse and something random. But Jesse P. Gilmore is the SEO version, which you'll find me. So,
right.
No, love the conversation, Jesse. This has been great. It's reinforced a lot of things that we talk about and we promote. And the nice thing about it is we need more folks like you out there, really teaching agency owners, and that really goes for really any other business owner, because what you've said here translates to really everyone that's running a small business, to really kind of get out of their own way and figure out how to turn their job into a business. And that's the key of it. And it was for us when we started Summit and now Anders. It could have been just the Adam and Jody show. We would have probably been miserable for the next 30 years because we're working a bazillion hours and really upset with ourselves because we're not seeing our kids and our family and all that kind of stuff, into a true business where we could actually empower people below us to really do it, and not slave those people, not making sure they're working a bazillion hours, but really teaching them how to actually do the exact same thing. So the culture of the company is a really strong culture altogether. And I think that's the big message, from here, is that, you can get yourself out of that. A lot of times it's hard to do it yourself, and it's good to have somebody like you, Jesse, to help pull you out of that and kind of get you in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. I knew Jody was going to love this episode because you really talked about two of his favorite things. You talked about value-based pricing, and you talked, what is the Mandela effect, Jody? What's the effect?
Mandela effect? Are you kidding me? Parkinson's law.
Parkinson's law. There we go. You talked about Parkinson's.
I was like, I don't remember that term being brought up in this one.
It's the new thing.
Giving Jody a hard time. Yeah, no, you talked about Jody's two favorite things. And so I think that this is definitely an episode to be remembered, because I think that you really did a nice job explaining it. I really liked when you kind of went into how to put some formula behind value-based pricing, because I think that's something that a lot of clients ask us about. And a lot of times when I'm speaking about value-based pricing, people are looking for that. So I think if you're a listener and that's something you're like, I get value-based pricing, I understand why I should be doing it, but I just don't know how to approach it. Like, obviously, Jess would be a great resource for that. So that's really the first time I'd ever heard someone put that much, process behind how to come up with the pricing. So great job, and really enjoyed you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the conversation.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.